Wow, that was a decisive win. What now? Why can't I seem to remember the other? Oh,
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
hey there, what's up? It's Wednesday, January 8th, 2024. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making us your first listener watch to get your Tar Heels content every single day. Special shout out to you everydayers, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and our great Locked On Tar Heels insiders. Let's get right into it. This episode's brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers, you can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com to check it out. Tar Heels beat up on SMU 82-67. The game was not even as close as that score seems to indicate. Tar Heels are now 10-6 overall, 3-1 in ACC play. RJ Davis leads the way with 26 points, followed by Ian Jackson's 18 and Drake Powell's 17. Wow, that felt good. What probably doesn't feel good is RJ's face or Ian's buttocks. Because RJ Davis takes a blow to the face late in the game, bloody nose. All indications, all reports post-game are that he is fine. Just probably got to stick some stuff up there to take care of some bleeding for the next couple days. And that's great because Carolina goes to play NC State on Saturday. And you would not want to be without RJ, nor would you want to be without Ian Jackson, who took a kind of fall as he got kind of bludgeoned, I guess is a good way to say it, midway through the game. Thankfully, his leg fell the right way, and he's fine as well. So all that is good. If you want to hear even more than what we talk about today on the show here on Wednesday, go make sure you check out the postcast that we did last night after the game. I know it was probably too late for quite a few of you, probably honestly too late for me, but we did it because that's what we do. I want to always get you guys all the content. So go check that out if you haven't already. Coming up, though, on the show today, we're going to do our Four Corners reaction, our Four Corners recap, talking about the freshmen and their ascendance, Carolina's resolve in the second half. We'll look at the shady stat of the game, where we go from here, all sorts of great stuff, but gotta start with what a weight off the shoulders this decisive win is. And obviously, I'm saying that for me and for you and everybody else diving in with us here, but you can only imagine what a weight off the shoulders that is for the coaching staff and the players who have been like, why can we not win a game decisively? Looks like they might be starting to figure some of that out. So, because when you think about this decisive win, it is definitely the first one of those in ACC play. You think about the three other ACC games. There was the loss to Louisville, the 2-point win to Notre Dame. Thank you very much, Elliot Cadeau, and the 2-point win over Georgia Tech several weeks ago. That's it. And then when you look against, let's ignore the bye games because decisive wins in those aren't going to do much for you. And then that leaves just two other wins against high major competition. That was against Dayton, who is really a high major. Carolina beat them by 2, and UCLA, who Carolina also beat by 2. I said Carolina beat Georgia Tech by 2. They beat them by 3 and Notre Dame by 1. So I had the average right, but not the totals right. Apologies for all of you who yelled at me for getting that wrong, because I know there's people out there doing it, because I probably would have been too if I was in your shoes. But so this is critical. Carolina really desperately needed this win, not just for the win, but like stylistically to show themselves, to show the conference, to show NCAA tournament selection committee members, hey, we can go out and win games against what seems to be a good team by a lot of points. We are capable of that because Carolina just hadn't shown it. They needed to get this monkey off their back, and now maybe this is the thing that jumpstarts whatever is ahead. And I feel like we've had to use that phrase a lot. Like, maybe this is the thing. Maybe this is the thing. And I guess at some point it's like, all right, buddy, if you got to keep saying it, maybe there's something to, you know what I mean? But it really does feel like things have been ramping up the past couple games. Now you get Seth back. Now, you're kind of figuring a lot more things out. So it was a critical win, not just for the style of winning large, but for your psyche of like, we are capable of dominating another team. That is within us as a team. And now maybe we're off and running. So that's great. But the question for me then turns to, okay, so why was this win so decisive? What allowed Carolina to do what they've literally not done all season long? Does that make sense? Like, again, their two ACC wins and their two other wins against high majors are by what, a total of 8 points, those 4 games, a 2, a 1, and a 3. Yeah, that's it. Now you got a 15-point margin, and that works. Why was it so decisive? Defense. And that was the tone set from the very beginning with Elliot Cadeau steal on SMU's first possession. But man, this team came out ready to go. And consequently, they did not get down at any point in the first half. Now, that's not always going to be the case, but it's going to help you minimize any margin that you get down. And not only that, but they were winning by double digits in the first half. It's like, oh, here we go. Man, crazy stuff. So the defense, Carolina was disruptive. They were active. They were, dare I say, talking to one another. They were communicating. Like you could see Jalen Washington's mouth moving as he was helping navigate for his teammates and telling them what to do and where to go. You could hear it through the TV just because of the great microphones we have these days. These guys were talking. And look, Carolina did this to a team that came into this game as the number 1 scoring team in the ACC and as the number 19 scoring team in the entire nation. That team just went 19 of 51 on twos against Carolina, which is 37%. They went 4 of 18 on threes, which was a season low 22% for them. And the 4 made threes is the lowest of the season for them. In totality, they shot 33%, 23 of 69. That was a season low as well. The first half, where they scored 24 points, that was a season low for SMU in any half of any game. This was just the 3rd time this season that the ACC's number 1 scoring offense was held under 70 points. Boopie Miller, the leading scorer at just shy of 16 points a game, shot 3 of 15 from the field, was 1 of 8 in the first half, 0 of 2 from 3, although that's not really his game anyway. But in totality, he was held to 9 points for the game when he averages just shy of 16. So Carolina held him almost to half of his usual total. And I know, how often have we said, I think this is going to have to be one of those teams that just outscores other opponents, meaning Carolina. But when you're doing that against the team's leading scorer, that's just as good as scoring 8 points above your average. If you can hold him, I guess it was 7. If you can score 7 points above your average or hold an opponent 7 points under his, that's essentially the same thing. So Carolina helping shut down Boopie Miller is great. And I cannot tell you, or I don't need to tell you, I guess I should say, what a critical factor it is to have Seth Trimble back in as part of that equation. That matters in a massive way because it didn't allow anybody to go off like Marcus Burton did Saturday or like Chucky Hepburn did back on New Year's Day at Louisville in the Yum Center. Thank you, Seth Trimble. SMU. Here's another thing Carolina did well. SMU led offensive rebounding 15-7, but guess what? Both teams scored 10 second chance points. So although Carolina was more than doubled up on the offensive glass, they managed to score 10 points off of theirs while limiting SMU to only 10 points off of theirs. That's important. So defense is, for me, the key reason that this win was not only a win, but was a decisive win. But you want to know why else it was a decisive win? Because Coach Pat Kilby was in the building. Yes, sir, he was. Obviously, I joke, it's in jest, but that's awesome. And clearly it means that Pack and his family now have to go back to every game the rest of the season because of what just happened. So congrats, Pack. Have fun going to every Carolina game the rest of the season. No, in all seriousness, so great that he and his family got to be there. Love that. But you guys, a decisive win led by the defense that turned into offense. That's what this team can be. We've seen it, and we need to make it happen. All right, coming up next, Four Corners recap. The freshmen are really emerging. What else? We'll get to all of it coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Rocket Mortgage and their great app, Rocket Money. By the way, has Rocket Money helped you find any subscriptions that you didn't realize you were paying for? Or maybe some subscriptions you knew you had but didn't realize you were paying for more than once? Well, Rocket Money can help you do that. It's like this personal assistant for your finances, but it's an app. A personal finance app that helps find and cancel your subscriptions, helps you monitor your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings together everything in one place, one-stop shopping. So whether it's subscriptions, whether it's spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit in this brand new calendar year, 2025, Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has helped save members a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving individual members up to $740 a year when they use all of the app's premium features. So, yeah, cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked on today. Again, that's rocketmoney.com/locked on. Oh, it's time for the Four Corners recap where we pay homage to Coach Dean Smith. Number one, my word, the freshmen just keep coming on. And look, when we say the freshmen, obviously we're meaning Ian Jackson and Drake Powell, but it's nice to see, it's neat to see that James Brown has now played a couple first half minutes in back-to-back games. He's earning more trust as well. But obviously we're going to focus here on Drake Powell and Ian Jackson. You may or may not have realized this, but when you look at Carolina and their three-point shooting, this hasn't updated. I wonder if I can go to Carolina stats. I wonder if it has updated yet on the website. Bear with me here because I want to give you kind of a crazy number. Both the freshmen. Do we have this? Yes. Okay. The Carolina site is updated now with the stats. Both freshmen, Ian Jackson and Drake Powell, are now shooting 40% or better from three. RJ Davis is up to a nice cozy 28, creeping ever closer to 30, but he's not even in the ballpark of what Ian and Drake are doing from a percentage standpoint. Seth missed a couple threes tonight, so he dropped off just a little bit, or I said tonight on Tuesday night. Drake Powell, 16 of 40. Ian Jackson, 27 of 67. The only other person on the roster that's 40% or better is Dante Mayo, who's 1 of 2 from 3. So, you know what I mean? Drake Powell, Ian Jackson, they are out here doing it. And yes, Ian didn't get his 5th straight 20-point game, but he had 18. And he's now starting to affect the game in a multitude of other ways. Some nice kick-out passes, some good defense when it's needed. 2 assists, 0 turnovers in this game. Drake was credited, I believe, with 2 assists and 3 turnovers. Let me verify that. 2 assists, 3 turnovers. But one of his turnovers was really Elliot's turnover. We'll talk about that later. But really, 2 assists, 2 turnovers for Drake. But listen to how he stat stuffs. And I don't mean that like cheaply. I mean like in a helpful way. 6 of 13 from the field. 4 of 6 from 3, 1 of 3 from the free throw line. Would like to see that get a little better. 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Again, credited with 3 turnovers, but it's really 2. 1 steal and 1 block. And then for Ian, guess what? Not only was he the second leading scorer on this team on Tuesday night, he was the leading rebounder. 7 rebounds for Ian Jackson, tying his career high. By the way, Drake Powell's 4 3-pointers also tie a career high for him. These guys are just finding more and more ways to do it, becoming more and more indispensable to this team. And that's great because they've been able to grow in that while Seth's been out. Now Seth comes back and the coaching staff has the responsibility of figuring out how to get it going. But Four Corners recap point number 1, the freshmen are coming and they're coming strong. So get ready for it. Four Corners recap point number 2, assist percentage. It's no secret that Carolina in the Hubert Davis era has just not shared the ball in the same way, like from a scoring standpoint, from an assist standpoint, in the same way as they did in the Roy Williams era. But in this game on Tuesday night, North Carolina scored 27 baskets. If I have my math correct there, I'm looking back at it. Yes, 27 baskets and assisted on 17 of them. That means for the game, Carolina had an assist percentage of 63%, and that is the second highest of the season. The only one that was higher, it was the first game of the season. Elon, Carolina was 68% assist ratio. At the half in this game, Carolina had assisted on 9 of their 13 field goals. I mean, that is so impressive. And think about this team. We Mark Campbell and I talked about it several weeks ago. I can't remember what game it was, maybe Alabama, maybe Florida. It's not sticking with me. But in that game, no Tar Heel had a positive assist to turnover ratio. Everyone was 1-to-1 or worse. In this game on Tuesday night, 5 Tar Heels had a, not just like 1-to-1, a positive assist to turnover ratio. RJ, 4 assists, 1 turnover. Ian Jackson, 2 assists, 1 or no turnovers, Jae'lyn Washington, 3 assists, just 1 turnover. And he's got Carolina's highest turnover percentage. So that's great. Seth Trimble, 3-1. Van Allen Lubin, 2-1. So you've got 5 players on the team with a positive assist to turnover ratio in that game, 2 of whom are 2 of your front court players that played the most front court minutes on Tuesday night, Van Allen Lubin and Jalen Washington. Yes, come on, dudes. Keep sharing the ball. That's the nice thing. Not only was the defense better, but the ball moved better in this game, whether it was the 1-3-1 zone that SMU was throwing. And, Carolina often shares the ball really well against the zone. I don't know if it was that, but they got out of that zone and went man because Carolina shot them out of it. So I don't know. Anyway, Four Corners recap point number 3. We've talked so much ad nauseum about the first half and the struggles and the woes and the troubles. But it was not the case in this game against SMU. Carolina never trailed in the first half and, in fact, led by double digits. But I actually want to right now talk about the second half because that was the big concern. After Carolina has now had 2 games in a row where they get up by double digits in the first half, the first of which, the Notre Dame game, they give that lead up pretty quickly in the second half. How will they fare in this one? Will the same thing happen like what happened with Notre Dame on Saturday? And the answer was no, but it didn't look that way out of the gate. I was really curious to see. SMU's got this great offense. It's not a matter of if, but when they're going to make a run. It's just a fact of the matter. That's why it's so important that Carolina had gotten a lead and then wanted to continue to build on it. But I was curious to see how on fire SMU would be coming out of the locker room and how Carolina would be ready to at least meet that or respond to it, and what would they do? And of course, SMU starts the second half with a 4-0 run, a 6-2 extended run, cuts the lead down to 11. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go again. Carolina just not doing it in one of the 2 halves. I don't know which one, but apparently today it was the second. But then Carolina's response. That 6-2 run from SMU made it 41-30 Tar Heels. From there, Carolina went on a stretch where they made 8 of their next 9 field goals and stretched the lead out to 62-38. And the final of that stretch was actually the Jalen Withers and one, where he tacked on one more to that for Carolina's largest lead of the game at 63-38. So you go from the moment of a couple minutes into the half being like, man, they got it down to 11. If they get the ball, they could get single digits. And then it's like the ball starts rolling and you're in trouble. Instead, Carolina responds with this great run, pushes out to their biggest lead of the game, and then just kind of puts the car in neutral and drifts on home into the garage. That's great. I was so encouraged by their response in the second half. And yes, the final 10 minutes were not up to the expectation or up to the standard of the other 30 minutes of the game. But Carolina did enough and kept it at a 15-point margin at the end of the game. So really, really good response. And again, Carolina is now showing that they're capable of these things. Fourth in the Four Corners recap. Man, I hate to put it this way, but I need to. Elliot Cadeau has to be more consistent. And I mean that in terms of staying out of foul trouble. I mean that in terms of emotion, and I mean it in terms of assists and turnovers. And it's it's a coaching, I yell because I care moment, because Elliot Cadeau has so much to offer. And beyond that, he is so critical to this team and its success that Carolina needs him. Thankfully, on this night, on Tuesday night, they didn't. They were able to do it even with him not honestly contributing a ton to the effort. And it was weird because he had such a great start, 5 points, before you blinked, plus that steal. But then he picked up 2 fouls before the first media timeout. And it's man, Elliot, you just earned yourself a spot on the bench for the next 15 minutes or whatever. Now, Coach Davis did bring him back in, and it's always that thing of okay, don't pick up number 3. You got to be smart. And I don't necessarily always trust. It's kind of like Jalen Withers dribbling a basketball. I don't trust it. And I don't necessarily trust Elliot to stay out of foul trouble. And if you watch closely, a possession or two after he came back in, he was kind of just swatting at the ball on defense. I was like, buddy, you're going to pick up the third one. And then it's a whole bad world. And man, there are just times that Elliot is not locked in enough, and there will be a couple lazy passes a game that lead to turnovers or near turnovers or things like that. So his 4 passes he was credited with turnovers on. He had a poor lob off a blob play, like a lob inbounds, was trying to get it to Drake Powell, was a little bit too high. The second turnover, it was early second half. He was doing some pick and roll action with Jalen Washington, trying to throw it between the 2 defenders. They got the ball, their hands on the ball. Third turnover, he just kind of lost his footing heading up to the top of the key, run out layup for SMU. And then the fourth one, this one, of the 4 is maybe a little bit understandable. It was an end of shot clock situation where he tried to get one more pass off. And maybe that's the issue. Is it's dude, when it's that low, you just got to pull the trigger. Just shoot it. But he was credited with those 4. There was another one that should have been his that was credited to Drake Powell, because technically it was off of Drake, but it was a bad kind of skip pass over to the sideline in front of Carolina's bench from Elliot. So really it's Elliot's turnover. It's just credited to Drake. So it's those things. It's got to be locked in, can't foul, can't get emotional, can't just be driving Elliot Cadeau. When the 3s are there, take them. When the opening is there to find a teammate for a great look, take it. But be consistent game after game after game. Stay away from these fouls. Keep your emotions in check and stay away from silly. Turnovers are going to happen, but minimize the ones that are self-inflicted. Variety. All right, so there you go. There's the Four Corners recap from this game. So much good. I did want to have a little bit of the in there, and we'll have a little bit more of that in the third segment as well, which will include the shady stat of the game and how do you build on this going forward. All of that coming up in just a second. It's time for the shady stat of the game. And y'all, it's got to be Jalen Washington's 9 blocks that he's had in just the last 2 games, 5 against Notre Dame, 4 against SMU on Tuesday night, which, by the way, that was games 15 and 16. Those 9 blocks matched his total for games 1 through 14. 9 blocks in the first 14 games, 9 blocks in the most 2 recent games. Aberration or start of something that Jalen Washington is unlocking? I'm going to be hopeful for the latter. So we'll see what happens there. But what's kind of crazy is per UNC, that's the first time Carolina has had 9 blocks in a 2-game stretch since Mondo did it against Boston College and NC State in the 2021-22 season. And things went pretty well there. So we'll find out what happens. But there's your shady stat of the game. Now, I mentioned a couple other bad things. Carolina at the free throw line was not really bad. They were 17 of 24, which is 70.8%. But the problem is it took a dynamite second half effort to make those free throws look good, because in the first half, the Tar Heels were 6 of 11 at the free throw line at halftime. That's just simply not good enough, specifically for a team that has to rely on the free throws to get a lot of their points, because of Ian Jackson and RJ getting to the hole, Elliot getting to the hole a lot. Carolina needs those points and they got to cash them in. Thankfully, they really cleaned it up in the second half where they shot 11 of 13 at the free throw line. That's crazy. I'm not expecting that level every half, but 9 or 10 of 13, yeah, we'll take that. Next kind of thing from this game, the bad turnovers. Carolina had 14 of them. As I've already mentioned, 4 of those were Elliot's. Really, 5 of those were Elliot's. And I mean, it's tough because some of it was as the game was kind of already out of hand and out of reach, and the Tar Heels had it wrapped up. But still, you got to stay locked in and do it. So I need to minimize turnovers, particularly, as we've said, self-inflicted ones. And then the final thing that I was disappointed with was the final 10-ish minutes. I really thought Carolina cranked it down too early. The things that they had been doing that made them so successful in the other 30 minutes of the game, they kind of took off the plate. And I get the desire to start running some clock. But I feel like Carolina went to clock kill too early in this thing. And I think they could have stayed more competitive and not had to rely on a couple fortunate end of shot clock shots down the stretch. So I didn't like that one. And the other thing from this game was I felt like there was a lot of hand checking, pushing, bumps, those kind of fouls that weren't called. The officiating was odd in this game, but I mean, what are you going to do? But anyway, I didn't think the refs were good enough. Also of note, 2 did not plays in this game. Cade Tyson and Ty Claude neither played, and for Cade, he had played at least a couple of seconds in every game this season. So this was his first game not playing. We'll see if that's some kind of injury or just coach's decision. Interesting. So last thing I want to hit really quick before we get out of here today is the question of, does this reset things because of the way Carolina did it, because of what we saw, because of Seth Trimble coming back? It's like, oh, is this us now? Or is this just a one-off that happened one night in the Smith Center in early January 2025? And then Saturday at NC State, things revert back to what we've seen. I mean, I've got my answer. If you're the team, if you're the coaching staff, you simply cannot let this just be something nice that happened one time. This now has to be your identity. And if I'm the coaching staff, I'm saying things to the players like, you have now proven to us that you can do all of this. So we're going to expect you to do all of it. Game in and game out. Show up and do the things that you've proven you can do. You've proven you can talk on defense. You've proven you can defend even with a smaller lineup. It's going to take a lot of work, hard work, but you can do it, and you have done it, and we've seen it. So keep doing it. But here's the key. For these Tar Heels, they got to show up ready to go from the tip. Game after game after game after game after game. I know these are college students. They're 18 to 22, 23 years old, whatever. You've got to be ready to go, just like the Tar Heels were on Tuesday night. If they can get that level of effort and energy and execution, they're going to be in great shape. They might not go 18-2 in ACC play, but 16-4, 15-5, that's within reach, man. That's very well within reach. And historically, that has proven to be good enough for second place in the ACC. That's within Carolina's grasp still. I know it might not feel that way, but it really is true. All right, so that's it. We'll get back together tomorrow. Coach Rob will be with me on Thursday's show. And then Friday, we will get ready for NC State on Saturday. Ugh. Payback. Gosh, we owe them so much payback from basketball and football and everything else. Please do, Carolina, do what you did on Tuesday night against NC State. I beg of you. All right. If you haven't subscribed to the show on YouTube, make sure you do that so that you don't miss a second of Locked On Tar Heels. Also helps us get to 10-3, 10,000 subscribers in the first 3 years of the show. We're so close. Would you subscribe if you haven't already? If you haven't joined the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, the link for that's in the show notes. A great way to stay involved with the show. The Locked On Tar Heels Discord is literally hundreds of Tar Heels fans in there hanging out, having a great time, talking Carolina sports and the rest of life and all sorts of things. It's wonderful. Come be part of it. And if you want to go even deeper and have direct contact with me, access to my stats and charts and data and other perks, join the Locked On Tar Heels Insiders 2-week free trial, and then it's just $5 a month after that. A great way to help support the show. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Great win for Carolina. A decisive win. That's absolutely right. We're going to talk again tomorrow, but until then, peace.